What's good, King Gonda? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson with a live stream. I got the mosquitoes flying around and stuff. And I have my very beautiful sister who's living in Accra, Ghana. I'm going to let her explain who she is.
It is the one and only African superstar. Much love to King Gonda. Much love to O'Shea. Great, loving friend, long-time relationship we have. Obviously, if you don't know who I am a content creator, also an award-winning musician who bases here in Accra, Ghana. So much love, and thank you so much for having me today.
All right, give her a round of applause. So, you know, we're pretty good friends, and you're one of the friends that we almost disagree on everything when it comes to the diaspora. You know, we both love Africa. We both love the continent. We both love the pro-Black community. We both love the Pan-African community. We just differ on a lot of things. And I think that some of the content that I have created regarding Ghana as a country or Sierra Leone and some of the things that the diaspora has been complaining about, like how hard it has been to resettle. You know, the diaspora in Sierra Leone, that was a story about the citizenship prices going up. I think that may have changed, but you made several videos about the Black diaspora. It's not just African Americans, it's the entire diaspora.
Right.
Complaining about how things work on the continent of Africa. And you are a person that is from the diaspora, from Columbus, Ohio, go Ohio State, okay? And you have experienced a whole bunch of challenges yourself. So talk to me about why you feel the diaspora complains too much.
Well, I mean, I just think that it's worth us having a different perspective when we come here. You know what I mean? First of all, we're moving to the continent voluntarily, number one. Number two, you know, there's a lot of cultural differences on both ends of the spectrum. And I think a lot of Westerners come to the continent with the expectation that everyone knows how we operate, everyone knows how we function, and we often expect the continent to function like the place that we are coming from. And I just think that's unrealistic. And I also think being extremely critical without having solutions is not going to bring us forward. And like you highlighted in some of these videos, you know, there has been a profound impact from some diasporians who have come to the continent and have, I would say, created a bit of confusion or difficulty. We saw this first with our Kathy in the Gambia. You know, she created some pretty controversial content that ultimately resulted in her leaving the country. And I'm sure it did also impact other diasporans living there. And then your recent video where you talked about the changes to the Sierra Leone citizenship and that their government was actually becoming offended or whatnot by some of the by some of the content that they were seeing coming from members of the diaspora. So my point is that obviously, yes, there's a lot of cultural differences. I think if you have not associated yourself or familiarized yourself with this environment, you will come and you will see a lot of problems and it may not be for you. But we do also have to be mindful that there are a lot of people here and that this loud complaining and this portrayal of our people through social media can impact them. You know, speaking about our mutual friend, Dynas Demir, obviously he was operating tours based on the premise of getting members of the diaspora citizenship in Sierra Leone. So I know he was directly impacted when they changed their processes, which probably meant a lot of the people who were gaining citizenship were no longer eligible. So, you know, that's just one of the many things, as well as us not wanting to create additional hurdles for ourselves to come here and settle. So that's more where I'm coming from with my criticisms.
So the criticism, let me just say what I'm thinking that you're saying is, okay, hey, diaspora, stop making it so bad and ruining your reputation in Africa and also ruining the reputation for other people that are even living here or before they get here with these African governments. Is that right?
Correct. Because for instance, you know, these African nations are the only countries in the world currently extending special provisions for diasporans. You know what I mean? Recently here in Ghana, they awarded, I'd say over 700 members of the diaspora between last autumn up to recently. They awarded many diasporan citizenship.
Mhm.
That was actually not the correct process, by law. By law, you're supposed to reside in the country for 5 years. You're supposed to hold a residency permit for those 5 years before you're even eligible for citizenship. So that was actually an accommodation for the diaspora. And there is no country in the world that is offering that to our people. If you were to go to England, I mean, obviously you and I both know we've resided in Europe. Immigration does not work like that. And so in as much we do have lineage connecting us to the continent, these are still countries. And this whole migration of the diaspora back to the motherland is as new to them as it is to us. So I think we have to be mindful of those processes adjusting. I've seen a lot of transformation here in Ghana as things adjust and accommodate for us, and changes and provisions are being made. So I think that in some cases, the expectation of many diasporans coming here is really unrealistic. It's really high, and their criticisms can lead to more negatives than positives.
Can you talk to me about the unrealistic expectations that you feel the diaspora has?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, we, those of us coming from America, those of us coming from England, those of us coming from Canada or Australia, we're coming from what is classed as first world countries. Okay. And these countries, for the most part, are well developed. They have infrastructure, they have a lot of conveniences. And obviously, if we're born and raised in those environments, we're very used to that living arrangement. When we come here to the continent, we will encounter things that we have not grown up with, lack of infrastructure, lack of roads or power outages, water outages. We have to deal with, the mentality of the continentals about them being completely oblivious about the world that we come from. And if we just sit back and look at the reality, like, okay, even though we have made this grand decision based off of a combination of ideas or experiences, the people that we're connecting with in our new home are completely unaware of why we are there. I went to a panel. I actually spoke on a panel here in Ghana
Very good point.
a few months ago, and there was a Ghanaian diaspora who had lived in Atlanta for about 30 years. And then she came back and set up a business. And she said something that was really profound to me. And she said that continental Ghanaians have no idea why we are even returning to the continent. They have no idea. They literally, they see the action, they see the parties. And if you pay attention to many diasporan circles, there will not be continental Ghanaians or continental Ugandans there. I mean, I think you do quite a good blend on your podcast and things like that. But typically, it will be members of the diaspora and then it's continentals. And the meeting of the minds is not happening. So they don't know why we are here. You know what I mean? And so that also adds to some of the complexities of when we're trying to interact with people, because again, they think that we're just, on holidays, we're there for a good time. We're not really trying to make it a home or reconnect. They don't understand a lot of those things. And so I think what's needed is a lot of efforts to communicate, efforts to bridge, efforts to build. And that's what I centralize my platform around. Obviously, there's negatives here on the continent. There's negatives around the world. We have seen plenty of negatives about Africa before we even, sent our passports out to get visas. So we have seen a lot of that. And I don't think that we should be the ones also perpetuating that to people back home. You know what I mean? Let's talk about, we can show them the reality, but our platform should not be centralized around that. Our platform should be centralized about the way forward, solutions, and the opportunities that we can take advantage of here on the continent.
Okay. So yeah, I definitely, you made a lot of strong points there. Very, very many strong points, especially, like I said, the local population not understanding why we are there.
Yeah.
And let me just say this. I don't think that, at least my qualm is not with, the local population in Uganda. I rarely complain about it. And I don't think that, I mean, of course you want to get somebody overcharging and things like that. But I think that the reality is that when you do try to have solutions, nobody really cares. I don't know about Ghana. I think it might be a little bit more forward thinking. But what you're typically told here is, well, this is
The way it
Ghana, or
is.
this is
Right.
Uganda,
Yeah.
this is Africa. And so that behavior, once you hear that phrase a few times, and it's almost like if you're talking about something great about the country, it's awesome. Then
Yeah.
when there's criticism,
You're
it's like, well,
critical.
so what you're really dealing with is a society in many ways that really doesn't want to change. I'm not talking about everybody in Ghana, but when you're coming in and you're trying to, let's even work with the private sector. We're not talking about the government, because the government is probably going to be fixed. But and people think there are opportunities here. An opportunity is an opportunity if you can actually do something with it. We're not going to talk about the cartels that own private industry. We're not going to talk about people who, they have their nepotism. We're not really dealing with a market that is, let's say, free. And, when you're talking about, well, we're the diaspora is over here and the continental Africans are over there. Well, I'm going to be honest. Most of the times when you deal, and this is how a lot of diasporans feel, I don't know about in Ghana, but it costs a lot to deal with a lot of people on the ground, meaning that they gain a lot and then you don't. I'm just going to be honest. That's one of the relationships that it occurs. People complain about, people talk about. People want to get in, start learning the local language, trying to be closer to people, and then it's like, okay, well, so many people have been treated so bad all their life. This is not everyone, but now people feel like, oh, here's a good opportunity for me to act for more or not appreciate for what a person's done. This is not everyone, but there's a reason for this separation, the diaspora coming back to Africa and those in Africa. And because first of all, we're different. And then
we're definitely different. I mean, I think obviously the diaspora, we are in a really hybrid situation because we have this historical connection to the continent that we are told about before we even maybe have acknowledged that or have any tangible connections but then we're completely estranged from the continent in many settings, especially foundational Black Americans that don't have don't have their direct ties to the continent or don't have any family or don't have any dealings. I mean, it's really a completely foreign concept. You know what I mean? And I do acknowledge that it's not a walk in the park, but I guess, my attitude coming to the continent a long time ago was that this is not a place that's devoid of problems. I'm basically going to trade some of the problems I deal with in the West for my African problems. And I've always had that mindset. So I typically weigh it. And when I think about the cultural differences, which are really difficult, and I know that obviously you're doing big business. You have a lot of staff that you work with. I know you've done initiatives to work with tourism with Uganda, and you have a larger scale of business and initiatives than I personally do. But I weigh those cultural differences against the racial construct that we deal with in the Western world, and the glass ceiling that we deal with, and the missed opportunities that we deal with, and the systematic racism that we have grown up with our whole life. And yet we go through that repetitively. And many people have accepted that as the status quo. They come to Ghana, they come to Senegal, they come to Nigeria, they have some run-ins with some, hustlers, basically, and because this is something I've been promoting my channel this is a classist system here in Ghana, okay? And typically the classes really don't mix. And so if you come in as a professional, it's very important that you try to tap into the classes that are closer to your level. Because obviously if you're dealing with the help, so to speak, they're going to see you as a big fish in a small pond, and they're going to constantly be asking you for this and that and this and that. It's been my own success to fraternize with people actually that have more than me. The people that I'm associated with here in Ghana, they own big houses, they own cars, they travel, they have money. So they're never asking me for anything. Matter of fact, they know I have the least resources out of the group. So I've been fortunate.
Can't help than being a man.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not a man, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm not a man, so I know, and the expectations on you are going to be a lot, because obviously, when men are successful in the African world, everybody's coming to him and asking him and needing him, and bringing their concerns to him. So I do recognize those things are going on to you, O'Shea, and I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I know, that your heart, you have good intentions, and I know you're a community oriented man, and you want to be impactful. You talk about it all the time, creating value, what are you contributing to the world around us? I know those are things that are very important to you, and I know it's frustrating, but I still just promote our people to have a bit of patience with this journey. What we are doing as pioneers is going to carve the way for future generations to make this process a lot more streamlined. And that does mean that we're going to meet obstacles and difficult situations, but how we handle it sets the stage for those coming up behind us. And we just have to kind of take that in stride. All great leaders of the past have encountered similar things. And it's just a part of being a pioneer. It's not always glamorous, but it does, we do change the world around us. You have put Uganda, we're talking about that before we started recording. You have put Uganda on the map for so many people, O'Shea. So many diasporans will not even know, they don't really know geography that well. They wouldn't even know about Uganda. They wouldn't even be interested. And you've been able to illuminate a lot of talent, from Kim the Comic to Jonita to Grandson. You found a lot of local talent that you've also been able to highlight and bring attention to. And it's very, very prolific, and that's what our focus must be upon. Healthy criticism is definitely necessary, but we need to make sure the tune is a lot more proactive and motivational than critical, because a lot of people look up to both you and I and other, personalities on social media. What we say or what we convey could be the difference between people making that decision, because they might say, oh man, O'Shea's my boy. If he's saying this about Sierra Leone, I don't want to go. Or, if African Superstar said this, I'm not interested. It's people like Dinah Samir who motivated both you and I to travel to the continent. You know what I mean? He showed interesting things. He showed positivity. He showed the beauty, and that motivated thousands of people to turn their attention to the continent. So we have to be mindful of the role that we play in terms of the influence that we're sending out to our peers and around the international community.
Let me just say this. As much as I see where you're coming from, I'm going to disagree with some of those points. The point is, we need to point out things about the positives of Africa, or basically, nice criticisms. The reality is, that kind of fake, I'm not trying to say that you're fake, because you're not. You're very honest. But that kind of fake humility that kind of goes around here, don't really address your problems. I think that you're setting yourself up to be dragged along the road, especially with people who have some level of power here in Africa. And they need to get on there. I think the diaspora needs to tell them flat out, because it's the diaspora, it's Africa making the call to the diaspora. You made a very straight point that, hey, listen, nobody is making you come. But clearly, countries are the African Union. We had an ambassador to the diaspora. So they're saying African superstar. Like, you were going to Ghana before it got popular. But you were going to Ghana because so many people have went before you, even in the past, I forget, W.B. Du Bois died in Ghana.
Yeah. A lot of members of the diaspora have been coming to Ghana. Yeah.
John Henrik Clark was in Ghana. So Mugabe was in Ghana. So, it's just like that relationship is there, but it's not our relationship to lose. It's them as a country. They're the ones that's losing, because you have too many talented African Americans or Africans. You made a video one time calling out Africans for talking down about their country to the diasporans. You made that video.
Right.
Hey, it's you guys, and I understand you're saying, hey, us as the diaspora, we are also representing the countries too. But who tells people not to go back to Africa? Africans themselves. They're the ones. You want to know why? When we go to Entebbe Airport, you see all those people going to Dubai, going to Saudi Arabia. It's because of what Africa is not doing. Their people are over there. You hear those horrible stories of what's happening to the women in Dubai or Saudi Arabia. And when those girls come onto our podcast, people cry and stuff like that. When they hear what happened to them, that's because Africa did it. It wasn't the diaspora that did it. Africa did it. So how much longer are we going to continue to sweep this under the rug as if ain't shit happening? I say that. I think we need to be straight out and get it out in the open. Like my grandma said, tell it like a TI is. And now when you tell it like a TI is, now they mad at you. Look at your Ghanaian buddies. Okay, they was really on me. Some of them in your live streams, all of them are roasting me from where? The ones that got the big problems, Frank and all them, they in Germany somewhere. They in Sweden somewhere. Most of them is not even in Ghana. You want to know why they're not there? Because of all the problems that we talk about, and they getting mad that we talking about it, and they ass ain't there. We need to be up straight and up forward with our people, whether they in our community or not. And it's only one way to do it and nip it in the bud. All this sugarcoating this shit, that. Okay? If they want us to come back and be here, we have the ancestral right, even though we may not be from there. But we have the right to say, listen, if you want to get this thing together, we're here to help you, but not in the way that you want to do it. Too many African countries want to do things that they want to do it. And where does that lead them? All of them are seriously in debt. All of them at the bottom of corruption rankings. Almost everyone is in a space. Now, I'm not trying to say the white man is not doing what he's doing, but we know that. But there's no accountability on account of any African country about why they're in a shitty place. Not one. Sierra Leone, for an example. Let me take them for example. We've been watching what these YouTubers have been doing. And, you know, they need to watch out and we don't give them citizenship. It's like, have you seen how up Sierra Leone is? No, I'm just going to be real. Look, I'm not dissing Sierra Leone. Look at where Sierra Leone is. How do they have the right to talk about what some YouTubers doing? Don't y'all got a lot of shit to handle in that country? This is no disrespect to them. We're trying to impress them. It's their job to win us. It's their job. They the ones that need us. And they know it. That's why they're doing it. So why can't we be honest about it? We might need them too, don't get me wrong. I feel better here.
I think obviously this discussion, it really, really highlights different approaches. You know what I mean? They are like there's different approaches to things, O'Shea, and there's always been a hard split, I think, among members of the American diaspora, you know, which is evidenced by some of our civil rights leaders. You know, we had Dr. Martin Luther King, who thought, okay, let's take the diplomatic approach, let's go through the judicial system, let's be calm, let's be peaceful. And then you had Brother Malcolm X, who was like, look, by any means necessary. He was bold, he was outspoken. Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously, there's more than one way to skin a cat, you know. Right. So I think I definitely want to give a well-rounded experience of my life here in Ghana. Like I said, a bit of our experiences are different because of the nature of what we're doing. You know, you are a big business owner in Uganda, and also I would say yeah, he's rich. But I think obviously, and then the environment of Uganda, where I know prior to you coming there, it probably was not a huge destination for members of the diaspora, which creates a lot more friction when you're trying to make initiatives probably than what's happening here in Ghana. Because I would say what happens here in Ghana is a lot more progressive in that respect because there is a larger group of the diaspora. But again, the change that those diasporians are enacting is coming from, you know, a more cohesive approach. It's not because they're out there, you know, criticizing the government or slamming Ghana. It's because they're meeting and trying to have these discussions. So we just try to have to strike the balance. You know, I know that you want to illuminate the difficulties that you're encountering and you want to ready those that are trying to come here realistically. And obviously people think that I romanticize Ghana. Okay. I want to say for the record, I don't romanticize Ghana. I recount my life here because I have not had the rocky road that a lot of people have had. I have been able to avoid that because a lot of the things that I try to help my audience prepare for, you know, but I do tell them, hey, there's cultural differences. You're going to deal with the infrastructure. There are people that are going to try to take advantage of you, their perception of you. They think you're rich and all of these kind of things. I do tell my audience these things, but I haven't had, I haven't been yoked up by the police. I haven't had immigration problems. I haven't had financial problems or problems with my landlord. So these are experiences that I personally have not had.
Me neither.
But all I'm saying is, with our criticism, we should be solutions oriented. If we are just simply criticizing, and that criticism is getting loud and it's costing people opportunities or making it difficult for us, the Western world is hostile. So people are looking for alternative options. And I don't want to be responsible for making people miss their boat, because one person's experience, not the other person's experience. You know what I mean? One person can come here and hate it in Ghana, and then somebody else can come here and have a beautiful life. So we also have to let our audience decide the life they're going to live, and the experiences that they may have. Now you are a very let me say straightforward person, so you and obviously the way culturally, from what I've seen in my travels in Africa, people are very indirect. Being very forward is kind of seen as rude or offensive and things like that. So obviously, maybe the way you're coming, sometimes people are just taking like, oh my gosh, this guy is, he's mean, he's difficult, even though you have good intentions, even though you just want people to be successful here, so I understand where you're coming from and I get it. Trust me, you're my boy. I love you. I love Dynas. I do, but I still think that we should see a lot of the positives, not ruin this opportunity for other people, and be mindful that this is a voluntary move. We should also come and survey these various environments. Now, before you came and moved to Uganda, you were frequenting Uganda. You traveled several times. Dynas has severally been to Nigeria. I severally came to Ghana. So that also helped us break down the environment a bit more. Now, some of our viewers are picking up one-way tickets and coming to Africa, and that's crazy. That's crazy. Because again, one environment may suit. I think probably for you, West Africa probably would be better. But I know you set up your infrastructure in Uganda, so you're going to roll with that. But maybe in retrospect, for what you're trying to do, with your content, your Pan-African content and entertainment, this may have been ideally a better location just because of the connection to the diaspora and, things like that. So these are things that we have to think about when we are trying to set up our life here on the continent, because every country is not the same, Yeah,
well, let me just say this, because you talk about here there's no glass ceiling. We talk about systemic racism. I want to address those things because, don't get me wrong, I love being here, but systemic racism or systemic nepotism, I'll tell you something about systemic racism. Systemic racism, if you're good, you can still get somewhere. Racist people don't have to like you. And in many cases, in American society, a glass ceiling, if we want to talk about millionaires from the black community, Chicago has 250,000 millionaires in the city alone. I don't know how many black millionaires do we have on paper in America. So we talk about the glass ceiling, there's more rich black people in America than anywhere in the world. We want to be honest about it. So that glass ceiling and systemic racism, I've never seen more glass ceilings than I've seen here. It's all glass ceilings to a certain degree. Now, it's a different type of glass ceiling. Like, if you can get popping here, oh, yeah, don't get me wrong. If I want to go to the bank, apps or whatever, yeah, it's black, I'm black. Nobody's really hating on me because I'm black. So I don't get that. But you also got to understand is that, everything is not based on meritocracy. It might be a little bit better in Ghana.
Oh, no. Here in Africa is social currency. So it's all about who who has money, who's powerful, that kind of thing.
And that attitude has Africa in a situation where it is now. That's why all their best talent is leaving. So I don't want to come here, and I don't even play that game anymore. I don't play that game at all. Want to know how I started doing better in the continent? Telling people literally to f off. Honestly, look, I'm good at whatever I do. You don't want it? Off. Simply just like that. Like, bottom line, you have to be so good in Africa at what you're doing. All of that telling somebody, I know this person, to know somebody else. And look, you need to come in, whatever industry you need to be so great that it's above the corruption standards. All of that, meeting friends, everybody wants to meet somebody as a friend here. And relationships typically like that are really fake. So when we're setting up the diaspora to come back and play that game, they're going to lose, and they're going to lose big. They are. Because meritocracy is not here. You're coming here. If you're going to do something, you need to do it and be the best to your ability at it. Know your industry to them where those guys have to say, yo, we have to deal with you. Like, well, I learned that from Ward and Maya. One thing I learned about Ward and Maya is so powerful at what he does. Either you're going to deal with him on his terms or you're not. And then we can't deal with Africa on their terms. I'm sorry. I think that's the wrong approach. Because if you want the diaspora to come back, then you're going to have to yield certain things. And Ghana, to be fair, they are doing that. I have to give them credit where credit is due. But we cannot play this game. And this, if we're going to miss some opportunities, we don't know they're going to miss the opportunities. They're going to miss it. It's not that Africa's going to miss it. Africa's already missing it. Their people are already somewhere. There are more Ghanaian doctors in the United States and in London than you have in Ghana or Nigeria. So who is missing it? Leave us out of it, the diaspora. Who is missing their people right now? Leave the diaspora out of it. They can't even get their own people to come back for real like that. So it's something that they need to do. And the same thing that Ghanaians tell you or Nigerians tell you, I used to run into them all the time in Poland. I ain't going back there. I ain't going to do this. Now I know everybody got their own experience. But what I'm saying is a systemic problem that's in Africa that has nothing to do with the diaspora. Go and look at all of these channels on YouTube that call out Ghanaian corruption, that call out Ugandan corruption. We ain't doing that. That's them. The Africans talk more about Africa and what they do in their local languages here on TikTok.
But what I'm talking about is the opportunities that pertain to us. Is what I'm saying. Because for instance, okay, let's say this. Since I came to Ghana, the currency has changed. The currency exchange has changed. All right. Things are much more expensive here. Like when I came in 2020. I settled in 2020. The first visit was in 2016. So when I came in 2020, it was like $1 to about 7 CDs. Yesterday I just did a transfer and it was $1 to 19 CDs. Okay. So what ends up happening when we start illuminating some of these, issues and blah, 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 is they respond in the way that they respond, which is like, for instance, the way the Sierra Leone responded and said, okay, now you're going to have to bring a substantial investment to get your citizenship or be a part of what we're doing here. There are some diasporans who've been able to take advantage of the way things are currently to get their foot in and start doing their enterprising. You know what I mean? And so that's what I don't want to be impacted, because some people are going to come and they're going to be able to get the affordable land. They're going to be able to start their business. They're going to be able to get in, because let's face it, a lot of our talent that's coming may not be extremely wealthy. At least that's how it is here in Ghana. We do have some people that are coming with big investments, but a lot of people are working everyday folks that are trying to find their situation. They can't afford land in America. They can't afford land in the UK, but they can buy some here. You know what I mean? It's too capital intensive to start a business out there, but they can start one here. We start complaining, and then suddenly they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, let's address this. Let's to teach them a lesson, basically. Let's
doubt that, but I mean, I see what you're saying. I don't think that will happen.
And I mean that's the thing, because the reality is a lot of the critics, with the exception of like you, don't even live here. They might come and go. So they're not really here for the fallout of whatever is going to happen. You know what I mean? So let's just be mindful with our content. Obviously, you are someone who likes to analyze things and definitely point out what's missing, what's failing. Let's do this. And I think probably people will listen to you. And I don't know if, for instance, that has been communicated too, because actually with this latest citizenship that happened here in Ghana, there are people that I personally know that have been living here for years and they did not actually receive the citizenship because it was more or less like a special kind of provision, for those folks. And we talked about it, and I spoke.
You didn't get it, but you've been there longer than him. Dr. Umar got
right. Yeah, because it was, like I said, it was a special provision. I was actually in London at the time. I had a show when they sent out an application for people. So it wasn't kind of like a chronological, like, oh, okay, these people are eligible for it. Let's, reach out to them. It was like people that wanted it needed to apply. I think there may have been, some kind of fee that goes along with it or something, and you remit the fee, and then that's how they were doing it. So, and I had the conversation with some of the people that I know that are in contact with the Diaspora Affairs Office. And I said, look, we should probably have a meeting with them and discuss this with them, that, the way that they're handling this thing. But that's my method. That's how I prefer to do things, and that's been what's working for me. I've had a lot of doors open for me because of my approach. And so therefore, that's how I tend to see it. You know what I mean? But I saw that story that you did about Sierra Leone, and I thought to myself, like, damn, Dynas was operating tourists to Sierra Leone like several times a year. And I'm sure that impacted him. And that's just an example of, what can come, the ramifications of some of this stuff. Now, are they right for increasing that? No, they're not. But again, it's their country. They can do what they want to do. And in as much we have connections to the continent, we are still foreigners coming from abroad and trying to be here. So there just has to be some meeting of the minds, in my opinion.
And let me just tell you this, and I definitely want to agree with you on one thing, is that we definitely both love the continent. And yes, we can't just be criticizing. We need to be, like I always tell people, well, I'm at least I'm here, and things like that. But I just also think that, I can just speak for the, some of the African American community and some of the Jamaicans or Caribbeans, and you're Caribbean. Hey, you get Caribbeans from the States, and they come in, they're gonna tell it like it is. They're gonna tell it like it is. Ain't gonna be a whole bunch of sugarcoating, and they're gonna just tell it like it is. And it's, how we get. We gonna see something, we just gonna, because we taught to be like that. Hey, hey, express yourself. Don't hold it. Tell it like it is.
And I think this is also another opportunity for us to examine how we are operating in these countries, because I think, again, if there's some type of cohesion and unit, it's a lot easier for us to push these issues like, hey, this is a problem. You know what I mean? But when we're having people scatter because we're not really coming as an organization. There are organizations here in Ghana, but I don't know how, for instance, the cohesion is. I don't know how, for instance, the cohesion is in Nigeria or Tanzania. I have some connects in Tanzania, and just trying to get a bit of an organization that we can move and say, hey, look, these are some of the concerns. How can we work together? How can we rectify these things? Because again, they're going to blow you off. Like you said, if you're coming as an individual and you're saying, hey, I don't like this, this isn't working. But when the pressure can be applied and say, hey, look, we as a unit are finding issues with this.
Right.
Then, because I think, for instance, those of you that are now Sierra Leonean citizens and things like that, that might be a charge for you guys to go and say, hey, look, this $100,000 investment for the members of the diaspora, it will be challenging for them to be able to, deal with this. And how can we move forward together? Because that's the whole point of us coming. Obviously, we are different. There's cultural differences, but we don't want to make the mistakes that were repeated in Liberia, where we come and we operate as a unit. We don't have connections, or our connections are a bit strained with local people, because it's natural. It's human nature. The ideology will be, oh, they're coming here to take space. They're coming here to take over. They're coming here to you see xenophobia and things like that in South Africa, where it's
Yeah,
them against
I don't
us.
think it would be like that. I don't think it ever get like that. To
Well,
that,
I
to that point.
I don't know, but I think that's why we need to examine how we move.
Sorry.
We
Go ahead.
need to definitely take constructive thought about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that we do this transition well, and that our people are able to matriculate on the continent and live well and have a good life.
I mean, the thing
That's
is,
always my
one
goal.
word: Africa lacks accountability. That's what it is. Okay. And I'm gonna keep saying this because hold on a second. These mosquitoes. And I wouldn't say that before on my channel here because I was trying to be a little bit nice, but I'm saying it all the time. There's no accountability here, right? And
Right.
it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be brought to the forefront. People, and I'm not talking about just local people or anything like that.
But that's what I'm saying. You made the point that even continental Ghanaians or Ghanaians in the diaspora or Ugandans, they talk about some of the issues that are pre-existing here too.
So you're not going to be able to like, oh, give us your money, come and do this, and then you don't want to be accountable for the things. And Ghana's doing a good job. Don't get me wrong, more than anybody else. So they
we still have problems here too. There's still issues. There's still issues too. But again, I think probably because of the sizable group, they have quite a voice, as to what's important and what needs to be addressed. But obviously there's a lot of nepotism, corruption, these things. I mean, it's rampant across the continent. And I don't think also diasporans, we're not going to be able to eradicate that overnight. These are pre-existing things. We can be part of the solution and we can be part of maybe modernization in some ways, but in a lot of cases it is what it is. I mean, it's going to be that way.
Like opportunities are there, but when you're trying to beat nepotism, corruption, the opportunity is not as attractive when you're going through those things. And you really need to be excellent. And I don't know how many diasporans coming up starting a business are really excellent at what they do. And that's a thing that we really need to stress. But altogether, I'm with you on the majority of things you're saying. I think that it is important for us to recognize that, yes, we do have opportunity here. Yes, we do have a option for another way of life, another way to do things. And we should be grateful for us being on the continent. But now that we got that out the way and the honeymoon is over, right? Now it's time for us, and there's so many people in Africa who feel very similar to what I feel, very much so. We want to move this thing forward, not because we feel like, we hate somebody or we feel like we're better than somebody. I mean, you just go to TikTok and you hear anybody talking about what's going on, more so than us. So I just think that both sides have to want to just be accountable and have something that you're not seeing in the Pan-African world, which is parity. There is no equality in Pan-Africanism. I think that the Pan-Africanism and the ideology is really only diasporan based. It's the diaspora that believes in Pan-Africanism. And so now we're